Well, here we are, Thoughts from the Office, Rednecks Pride Outdoors Wildlife Control Series. And I want to talk about raccoons real quick. And although this is for the wildlife control, fur trappers can glean a little bit from it, even though you're typically not trapping or trying to catch raccoons at this point. But right now we're September 2nd, so we're going to be either in the tail end of phase 4, most likely in 5 on some, and could be going into 6 on others. And one of the things that you will notice is on the family groups that are out and about, you're going to be in 5 and 6. All right, there are some that late boomers, that had their pups back in July and August, and they still may be inside, but I haven't seen that too much this year so far. But again, we're probably in 5, going to be in 6, if not pretty quick here in the next couple of weeks. So when you have a job that you're called on and the customer tells you that they saw multiple raccoons at the same time, that's telling you it's a family group. Where they're hearing multiple raccoons at the same time, that's a family group. And one of the things that will happen at this point is the customer tells you that they hear the noise once or twice a week, which is theoretically telling you they hear it today and tomorrow, and then they won't hear it for 3 to 5 days, depending on the family group's age. And then hear it 1 or 2 days, and then they won't hear it for 3 to 5 days, typically, like that. When you set your cages up, you're most likely going to catch the young ones. Now, I always key in on the female. I want her out of the way. But most of the time, she's still in that weird mode, a little bit, if you will. And most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, for me anyway, I'm going to catch the young ones. So if I have 2 or 3 traps out, I'm going to catch 2 or 3 young. Now, you can do a couple different things. If the customer says that they saw 3 young and a female, which is what you can average in my urban, suburban house jobs, 3 to 4 pups and a female. But a lot of times it's 3 young by this time, because a lot of the she may have started out with 5 or 6, but we're down to 3 or 4 now, because the raccoon that you always see off and about further away from mom in the early part of the ground game, they typically don't make it. They get picked off by cars, boar raccoons, or whatever else. Okay, dogs, people. So when I set the trap up, if you know you got 4 raccoons, then you can set 4 traps. And what I would do in that case there is I would set them 4 traps close to each other. One little trick I do is I set the 4 traps close to each other with all the doors facing towards each other. So if I did a triangle, or not a triangle, I'm sorry, if I did a half moon shape, all the doors would be facing into the center of the half moon. I don't know if that's making sense to you or not. That way I start my baiting strategy there in the middle where all the doors are facing. And I always try to key in on the dominant female with either an outside trap or if I'm using 3 traps, I'm going to use the center, the in-between trap for the female. If I've got 4 or 5 traps, then I'm going to set up. I try to always go in the middle because her caution is going to be in that middle area. Now, there's no basis to that other than me just thinking it. Okay, that's one of these things I grabbed out of the sky, and half the time it works and half the time it doesn't. So take that with a grain of thought. But my mind is as she's working to try to get the other raccoons out of the traps because she's going to pull the traps or whatever. If that center one is open, then there's a good possibility that as she's trying to work around all the traps, she goes in. So the traps are close enough that it's not easy to get between them, but the traps are far enough apart that they can't spring the traps from inside another trap. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. But what I have, the other thing I'm going to do is, if I don't know how many raccoons I have, or I suspect I have multiples, but I don't really know, and say I set up two cage traps. What I find is this: I'm going to catch a young one first most of the time. And I may catch 2 young ones first time. And what I find in phase 5 and also possibly beginning of phase 6, depending on phase 6, not too much because she's in a different mindset there, but in phase 5, she's going to cash in her chips and head out, man. Just like I said to you a few minutes ago about she started out with 6, but now she's down to 3, and she lost 2 of them because they was wanderers. Okay, she doesn't dwell on that. Those 2 get taken out by a boar raccoon, they get taken out by something else. What does she do? She grabs the ones that's still there and takes them away from danger, or perceived danger, or whatever. Now, animals aren't smart, as in reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they're not dumb either, and they know when stress is happening, they know when negative is happening, and they know when this is not a good scenario. I talk about this in the dog proof. If you come to South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School, I go into detail with this with the dog proofs. This is why you catch 2 or 3 raccoons in a dog proof, and then you don't catch them anymore, but the raccoons are still there. But anyway, getting back to what I'm talking about. When you catch 1, especially 2 of that litter, that last 1 or 2 that she's with, she will pull them away from there after she tries to get them out. And I find this more so when I come back and say I caught 1 raccoon, young raccoon, and they're able to make it on their own now. They're juvenile delinquents. They're 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Okay. When I come back and I see I caught 1 raccoon and that trap is pulled all over the place, that's telling me the female was trying to get it out. And that was either the last pup that she has, or she said, heck with this. The rest of them I'm taking away. I'm not here anymore. and she takes off. And a lot of times your job is done, at least for a month, because she now looks at that area, that zone, that spot as negative, and I don't want to put my young into that scenario anymore. So this is where it's important to understand why, when, and where, what, when, and why. Like everybody says to me, well, you don't tell me how to set the trap up, or you don't tell me where to set the trap, or you don't tell me what method to use. And that's because more important than the method, more important than anything else, is understanding and seeing behavior. Because when you see habit, when you see behavior, you can always come up with a method. And when you see certain behaviors, that's telling you, I'll be gone. Be gone fast. Ain't coming back no more. Alright? So, just thoughts for the wildlife control industry. Trappers, if you think about what I've said here, that may help you. But again, if you're a location based on method trapper, then it didn't do you diddly squat. But if you are a method based on location trapper, you may get some light bulbs coming off on this. All right, we'll catch you later. Redneck's Bride Outdoors, thoughts from the office.